All right, John, we're live. Thanks for joining me this evening. As I typically like to do, I'll give the floor to you so you can introduce yourself and what you do to my audience.
All right, good to be here, Connor. Obviously, my name is John Rankins, and I am the creator of the Sales Machine. I've been running businesses for more than 30 years throughout the world, Southeast Asia. Currently have over 3,000 sales agents selling real estate, car care, skin care, even software. Um, and what I done most recently is take the psychology and methodology of building and scaling sales teams, and I've put it into technology. That technology is called the Sales Machine, and it's got a patent pending framework. It's a smart framework where you can actually use sales, marketing, accountability, retention, and training seamlessly within one platform for performance management and for building and scaling a sales team. So it's not a CRM, folks. If you've got a
Yeah, I think so.
notebook on your desk like I do, that's a CRM. Same thing. We don't just track leads and do sales pipelines. We drive performance with rewards, recognition, competition, and compensation, with levels of development so people know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it so you can grow your business on autopilot. Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
So if you're a founder or a future founder and you want to grow your business, throughout my journey, failing lots, failing forward lots, I learned along the way that if you really want to have a sustainable, scalable business, you've got to have structure, you got to have systems, and you got to have strategy that is kind of like what Wayne Gretzky said. When he was interviewed, everybody always asked him, why do you think you outplay everybody else? And he always says, because I skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's at. And so, however I can add value to your listeners and future founders, Connor, I'm grateful and happy to do it. And utilizing the frameworks that I've created and technology to empower them when they're ready.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the intro. I think it helps set the context. And I know we've been talking about one of the frameworks you use, the ultimate success formula. And I think that's something you use in building the sales machine and working with other organizations. But maybe you can clarify what that is and how you use it in your company or with your customers.
Well, sure. And first of all, let's talk about why I created it. So,
Yeah.
in actuality, in 2002, I was on top of the world. I was flying, man. I had $3.5 million in the bank. I was 27 years old. I already bought my mom a house, and I was in Indonesia at that time. I'd been traveling the world with Tony Robbins, right? Fiji, South Africa, going on safari, very small groups of people on private jets with Tony. And it was a great time in my life. And just finished up with one of the programs in Fiji, flew back to Indonesia where I was running my own business. And at that time, I had a director managing all the money and everything. Long story short, I came home. I said, I'm going to buy some land in La Crusta, California, build a house, da 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 da. Anyway, he's like, oh, it's not a good time, da da da. Long story short, again, he had embezzled all the money, transferred all my assets, blacklisted me from the country, was just waiting for me to fly out again so that I couldn't come back. And so I kind of went from hero to zero.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a brutal time for me. I was in shock. I felt like I failed. I had 800 salespeople at that time selling novelty items. Um, and I just felt like a total failure because I'd, I'd lost control of the company. I lost all my money. I felt like I failed myself, my family, and my people. And, for a week I was devastated and figuring out. I went and bought that book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and I read every word and digested every word about how can I make a comeback,
Hmm.
because there's no way I was going to accept that. So I figured it out with, I had some friends, and I took a plane to a remote island. And then from there, I took a boat to Singapore so I could set up a new work permit and come back without the immigration knowing.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. But when I was on that boat, and it's a 45-minute ferry ride, I really realized I actually broke down and wept. I could not believe that everything had gone wrong. But that breakdown gave me, a distinction to break through, and the ambition to break out of that situation. Um, and I started writing, and I wrote down, I took an audit of where I was at, and I used to call it 5 steps to clarity. So I clarified, okay, where am I at right now with my talent, my skills, my ability, my resources, my resourcefulness. And I just kept writing and writing. Okay. So I know where I'm at. I'm starting over, but I still have 800 people who believe in me, even though I was broke, and at that time broken.
Hmm.
I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny then. And then I clarified, okay, so what do I want? What do I want? And I knew that I wanted to be a multi-millionaire, right? I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be a leader of an organization that empowered people to also become multi-millionaires. And then I wrote down my why. Why did I want it? I built a plan, clarified how I'll get it. And then as it went along and I implemented that plan, within a year and a half, I had 1,000 salespeople, promoted a vice president, a VP, a divisional manager, and saved another $1,000,000. And I took that guide, Get Total Clarity, and I evolved it as, I grew, and then I had some setbacks, and I grew, and I had more setbacks, and I kept just failing forward. And so I realized it wasn't just the clarity I needed, it was also the focus. And so the ultimate success formula is something I use with um, all of my private clients or the CEOs I coach in within my own organization. And it's required reading, and it's great for people both personally and professionally to scale their lives and their business. And it's a simple 3-step framework, but extremely powerful. So you first and foremost it's about clarity. Second, focus, and third, and probably most importantly, but not as important as the whole, is strategy. So
Hmm.
once you establish clarity and you really do the work without distractions, without disturbances, and you really get that clarity, and then you focus on the 5 laws of focus, which are: number one, what you focus on is what you get. Number two, what you focus on expands, right? Number three, focus is more important than intelligence. And number four, following one course until successful is omnipotent. And number 5, who you focus spending time with is who you become. So once you have that clarity, and then you identify your focus and what you're willing to do, and most importantly, what you're not willing to do, so that you can stay focused on what you want. And then you ultimately build out the strategy or adjust your strategy along the way. That's the ultimate success formula.
Can you kind of clarify what clarity means? I think you said earlier, is it your why? Is it why you want to be successful? Why you want to earn a
Well,
lot of money?
clarity. So a confused mind doesn't buy. A confused mind doesn't act, right? And the only way to get certainty is to identify or get clarity on what do you truly want, right? But before you can even move forward, you need to take audit of your life. Getting total clarity is clarify where you are. Step number 1. Where are you at with your talent, your skills, your ability, your resources? Where are you at? So once you audit your life and you know where you're at, then you can because you got to know the starting line and you got to know the finish
Hmm.
line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if let's just put yourselves in the shoe of someone that wants to start a business and you say, I want to start a business, but I don't have X skill. I don't have marketing skills. I don't have sales skills. And then so you clarify that you need to obtain those skills and you determine how you need to focus and get those skills. Is that part of it?
That's right. So whatever it is you want, somebody out there's already achieved it, unless you're Elon Musk. Um, he's very
Hmm.
rare. So yeah, if you want to run a business, a lot of people come to me. I was at rehab. I just had shoulder surgery, and I do calls during rehab as far as you know business calls while they're stretching me and stuff like that. And a guy's like, I see you're a businessman. What advice would you give me? I'm just starting out, but I want a business, but I don't know what kind of business. Um, and I always tell people the greatest skill you can ever learn is sales, right? First and foremost. So no matter what, you've got to sell yourself on your own idea. You got to sell yourself on you. You got to sell yourself on your own business. And if you don't have the capital to start out, sell somebody else's stuff, right?
Hmm.
Or be an apprentice to someone and do it for free until you learn, right? Yeah, people invest in college all the time. They come out and don't do nothing with it, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
the statistic is absurd. The amount of people that go to college, choose a major, get out, and don't use that major is, I think, more than 70%. I'll get the facts on that, right?
Hmm.
Vanessa, look that up for me. The amount of people that go to college. So, and they spend money to go to college. Yes or no? They invest to go to
Yes.
college, but it doesn't teach you how to run a business. And so for me, there's 4 different types of intelligence or sense, right? There's nonsense, right? A lot of people spend their lives talking about drama, nonsense, gossip, events. It's just nonsense. But that's wherever their mind space is, that's what they're going to accomplish. So there's nonsense. Then there's the second level, what I call academic sense. You went to school, you learned theory, you focused on all of that, but you have no experiential learning. You actually have no experience. So that academic sense, unless it's put into play and you've actually used it, it's just theory. It's not going to get
Yeah.
you anywhere. And then there's common sense. Common sense is rare also, right? But
Hmm.
common sense is have the ability to maximize the resources you have to create the best result. And at least to get you to the next level of your journey, it's going to get you to the next step, to the next step, to the next step of where you want to be, whether it's running a business, a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, running a small business, running, you know, a decent sized business, which I think is $3 to $10 million. And then mid size is anywhere between 20 and 50, right? To a large enterprise. It depends on where you're at, but you got to take it step by step, little by little, every day, every day, every day, in order to get there. And you got to be willing to do the work. So that's common sense, is knowing that, okay, I've got these 5 steps to clarity. I know where I'm at. I know what I want. I know why I want it. I know how I'm going to get it. And now I need to clarify my progress every week. That's the 5 steps to clarity, used with the 5 laws of focus, used with the strategic planning in the ultimate success formula. Is this making sense?
Yeah, it's making sense. Maybe can we break it down a little more in the example of just developing the skills of sales, right? And I think there's a notion out there for a lot of people that they say, "Oh, I'm just not a salesperson." So maybe you could speak to that to begin with. You know,
100%. I
are
love
people
hearing
born
that.
are people
I
born
learned.
sales
Do you have
sales leaders or salespeople, natural born salespeople, or is it a skill and you just need to clarify how you're going to get there?
Well, that starts with the psychology. So first and foremost, a lot of people have been burned, or a lot of people have the misinterpretation that sales is something I'm doing to you, not
Hmm.
for you. So first of all, it's not about you. It's not about your hair. It's not about your shirt. It's not about your smile. Guess what? Sales is first and foremost service. So when you come from service, there's no nervous. So you tell me you're not a salesperson. So you don't care about people? Is that where you're
You don't
at?
want to help. You don't want to help people.
Yeah. So you don't like helping people, children, the elderly, yourself,
No, no,
others?
yeah, I do. Yeah,
Are you
I think
sure?
everyone would say that yes, yeah.
Well, exactly. So the only reason you're saying you're not a salesperson is because either one, you've got burned. 2, you think people are sleazy that you've dealt with that are selling to you. And your experience has been that it's something that people do to people, not for them. So Zig Ziglar said it better than anybody in the history of planet Earth. Number 1, sales is service, right?
Hmm.
And I learned this when I was speaking to a crowd in Japan, all CEOs, right? I was a minute and a half into my speech, and the CEO of Sony stood up and said, "Why should I listen to you? You dress," and I was wearing a $2,000 Xenia brand new suit for the keynote, right? "You look like any other average salesman. I have thousands of them. Why should I listen to you?" And I said, "Well, you don't have to." And he said, "Why should I listen to you? What can I learn from you?" And I said, "Well, nothing. You can't learn anything from me if you're not open to learning. But
Hmm.
I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to let you know how I've built organizations of thousands of salespeople. But if you're not open to it, I can never teach you anything. And no, neither can anyone else teach you anything. I'm just here to serve you." And I walked off that stage and said, wow, in front of all these CEOs, I didn't get nervous. When in service, never nervous. So you want to be great at
Yeah.
sales?
No,
Think
so I
about what's
mean,
in it for them,
yeah,
right? And how can
and
I serve them? So Zig Ziglar, I'll close the loop. Come from service, number one. Number two, the intention is to solve their problems. And number
Hmm.
three, make sure they're satisfied long after the sale, and you'll have them for life. That's what I would say. If you're just starting out and you're afraid of sales, and if you're feeling nervous, it's because you're focused on you and your ego is messing with your head. Because when you're focused on them and you're focused on service, then it's really something you're doing for them, not to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So it sounds like for people listening out there that want to develop that skill, I think the first step is breaking that belief, that false belief they have about sales. And then just to kind of continue this through your ultimate success formula. Okay, they break that belief and they say, okay, I want to own a business one day. And I understand that sales is a key part of that because I'm going to have to sell myself. Like you said, I'm going to have to sell others on why they should work for me. If I'm going to build a business, I'm going to have to sell the product that I'm putting together as I build it. I may have to sell investors, whatever. You're selling everyone. So you overcome the belief and you now understand that selling is serving. Then what is the next step? Is it just getting repetitions in of getting used to finding prospective customers and finding the right prospect and talking through it and just doing repetitions and repetitions and understanding that you're going to hear a lot of no? Or what do you do next?
Well, I'm not an academic, but I've I've studied a lot. And there's 4 levels of learning, right? Um, and I don't want to get too technical, but some people are just unconsciously incompetent. They don't know that they don't know. That's why they have blind spots, right? So they're unconsciously incompetent to do something and they have a blind spot about it, right? So when you understand the psychology of people and limiting beliefs, right? Some people are unconsciously incompetent. They don't know that they're not a brain surgeon, right? Or even what
Hmm.
brain surgery is, as an example, when they're young, right? They're just unconsciously and they're incompetent. They can't perform the task, right? Then they
Yeah.
hear about brain surgery or study it, but then they're consciously incompetent. They're aware of it, but can they do it? No,
No.
right? And then they're consciously competent. They go and they train, and then they can do it. Uh, and they're conscious of what they're doing when they're doing it. And then the highest level of learning is they become unconsciously competent. Like you can drive down the road, listen to loud music, right? Drink a drink and not even pay attention to where you're going because you're just unconsciously competent at driving to work every day, right? But when you first
Yeah.
started driving, like when I first started driving, and it was a stick shift in a Ford Pinto that was the worst car on the planet Earth, and it wouldn't go into gear. And my brother would turn up the music, and people would be screaming in the back. I was freaking out
Yeah.
because I wasn't unconsciously competent. So the more repetitions you do, like you mentioned, the better you're going to get. And the more you focus on how can I solve their problems and how can I serve them, the more fun it becomes. So for me, I love selling because I'm like a curious little boy and I'm not very little anymore, but I'm curious. How can I help you? How can I solve your problem? And, it's kind of like putting together a puzzle, right? So have you ever put together puzzles when you were young?
Yeah.
Like a jigsaw puzzle? Initially,
Yep.
and the more pieces, the, the more challenging it is, but the more satisfying it is when you finish it, right? Like, look, it's done. That's in my mind when I'm helping people and solving their problem, whether it's an organization, whether it's an enterprise, whether it's a large business or a small business, a solopreneur, I just get excited and I feel
Hmm.
joy when I connect those dots. When I put that puzzle together, Sales are fun, man.
Yeah. So that's another realization is it could be fun. It's not necessarily a chore once you get to that unconscious competence.
Yeah, do you
Um,
like making people smile?
yeah.
Yeah, do you like helping people? I love that, right?
Hmm.
So, and this psychology, by the way, is not exactly like everybody's fault, because when we're born, when you come out of the womb, you're scared. Everything is fight or flight. You don't know what's going on, right? You cannot feed yourself. You cannot bathe yourself. You cannot wipe your butt. You can't do anything. You are basically a useless human.
Hmm.
Besides bringing mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, and brothers and sisters joy with your presence, you're still useless, right? So you're afraid of loud noises. You're afraid of everything, right? It's either fight or flight, but you ain't running anywhere, right? So you're scared, right? So along the way, we're conditioned with these limiting beliefs. We're conditioned with what's possible. Um, and that comes, most of it's from your own environment, right? That's why the fifth law of focus is one of the five laws of focus is you become who you focus spending time with. So if you focus spending time with people who are in scarcity, people who think all salespeople are scam artists, and there are a lot of scam artists out there, right? Um,
Hmm.
then that's going to be your belief system conditioned in you. So you got to get out
Yeah.
of it. You got to become aware of it. And this, the ultimate success formula talks about the awareness you need, and where you might have blind spots, where you can, if you're not aware, you go into a crazy eight. So you try to achieve something, you're not aware, and you don't break out. You just stay there and you never become successful. You get small wins, but backed by losses. So the only way to break through, right, which are those limiting beliefs, is when you set a goal, you start going up, right? You start ascending, you're doing all right, and then you hit a roadblock,
Hmm.
and then you have a breakdown, right? And you don't identify, you don't stop, you don't take a time out, you don't learn, and you just remain in that breakdown or a crazy eight. It's what it's called in psychology. But in the ultimate success loop that Ray Dalio showed me, you go up, you have a breakdown, but then you stop, you identify what happened, why did it happen, what did you learn from it, how can you move forward, and then you can have a breakthrough. And after you have that breakthrough, as long as you continue the focus and action, you can break out. And that way you don't get stuck in a crazy eight. You get stuck in a success loop, the ultimate success loop. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that kind of those days again? Back to the sales example. Let's say it's even one of your sales reps, and they're working for you, and they're hitting a roadblock, or they're not finding success for whatever reason, and then they keep hitting that roadblock. They're in that crazy eight, and they're not understanding why. I mean, is that a point where a lot of people quit and they say, "Hey, this isn't for me"? But if you realize how to get out of that and break through, as you said, that's how you can keep going. I'm just wondering how people can deal with those bad days, or where it seems like such a grind, or you're not finding those wins.
Yeah. So, first of all, it's be open to feedback, ask for feedback, right? And, you know, success leaves clues. Find somebody that you can model, right? Um, and do what they're doing. And there's no excuse for not finding someone. You can say, well, I don't know anybody, or I don't have any successful people that I can hang out with. You can go on YouTube and there's a million successful people. So there's
Hmm.
no excuse. But if you are getting negged out, right? and losing your attitude. And I know I've done door-to-door sales, and I built
Yeah.
door-to-door sales teams for 30 years. So if you want to talk about rejection, and a lot of it, for me, it's not even rejection. They just don't know enough about my product. It's not about me, right? And I
Yeah.
got very little time to influence and persuade them. So ultimately, you have to identify, do you love what you do? Steve Jobs said, do what you love and you'll do great work, right? But you know what? Even when you're doing what you love, sometimes it can get frustrating, right?
Yeah.
And whatever you're doing, for me, I just love to fall in love with my value proposition. What can I do to add value to people, right? But when I first started out in door-to-door sales, direct selling, you think I was in love with it? People were screaming, throwing calculators at me, yelling, reporting me to the police. Where's your business permit? Like irate people. I remember in Oakland, California, I was selling these baggy pants door to door. And this crackhead comes out with the biggest butcher knife I've ever seen. And I mean, it was insane. And he's like, give me the pants. And I'm like, I can't do that. I got to make money. And he's like, give me the pants. I'm going to stab you. And I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was torn because I needed the money.
Mhm.
But I gave him the pants and I was pissed. Do you think I lost my attitude? Yeah, but I didn't lose my dream. I didn't lose my goal. I didn't forget about the goal. I didn't forget about my dream, right? So forget about all the nonsense and get back to focusing on what you want. And if you're doing something right now and you're starting out and you want to be a future founder, well, if you don't like what you're doing right now, then fall in love with why you're doing it. So I was speaking in Japan. It's so funny. That was years ago. And I just spoke in Japan to another group of CEOs with my business partner. And I had no idea they were going to bring me on stage to speak. They made their own arrangements for him to speak, right? And then they just brought me up on stage. But I love what I do, and I love why I do it. And they had a lot of questions about my partners frame, which was just the 3 Ps, and we won't go into that. But I just went up there and talked about the ultimate success formula, especially when you're starting out, is you either, and I drew a circle around his Ps, I mean a heart. I asked him for a red marker. I drew a heart around it. And I says, look, if you're just starting out, you want to run your own business, it's not going to be easy. And if you don't like doing it, you still have to love. And if you love doing it, advantage.
Mhm.
If you don't, then fall in love with why you're doing it. Who is it going to help? See, I did sales, not just to help others, but to make money to buy my mom a house because I grew up on welfare and food stamps. Not a fun
Yeah.
time. As a single mom, we had to figure things out. We had to find a way all the time. So fall in love with what you're doing or fall in love with why you're doing it. Your goal has to be so inspirational to you that you'll do whatever it takes to get it. And not just motivation, okay? Because motivation has expiration. You got to understand that. You know, you buy your first sports car. I remember I bought my first Porsche when I was 22 years old. But within a year, I wasn't motivated about that Porsche anymore. Motivation
Yeah.
has expiration. Once you hit a certain level, then there's the next level and the next level and the next level, right? So inspiration lasts. So material possessions are like, you can get motivated about them, but they'll expire. But inspiration, when you can do something like, I bought my mom a house
Mhm.
twice.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, isn't it almost as if you're kind of running away, or the pain of your past is pushing you. Like, I don't want to be in this on welfare anymore. I need to push forward into something better for my family. Is it
Absolutely.
almost
It's hunger,
running
dude.
from the negative? Running from the negative can be more powerful than the Porsche, as you mentioned. I mean, you think that's fair?
Yeah, and it's different for everybody, but I grew up in a time where welfare and food stamps it was really embarrassing. And I used to. There's a Harvard speech out there. If your people want to see me speaking at Harvard, um, it's more about life than just the successes I've achieved. And it's for me, there was a lot of pain as a child growing up, and that drove me because I knew that especially the great equalizer early on for me was sports. I was good at sports, right? And everybody had more money than me, right? Everyone had more money, but they weren't. I knew they weren't any better than me. They weren't more intelligent than me. They just had more resources from their moms and dads. But it made me hungrier to want to fight to get to what I wanted. And I eventually learned that if they can do it, so can I.
Do you ascribe almost to the notion that people that start in more disadvantaged backgrounds can do bigger and better things than people that have already been born into a better situation?
Yeah. So comfort is the enemy of success. I'll say that again. Comfort is the enemy of success, because as soon as you get comfortable, that guy that didn't have the same fortune as you, he's hungry and he's coming for it, and he will outwork you. He will. So, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that people who are raised by wealthy families will not be able to achieve what people who came from misfortune. So if you were fortunate, great. If you were misfortunate, great. I know that drove me early on, but I come to understand it's all about leadership. So even if you grew up in a wealthy family, but your dad didn't allow you to get comfortable, he constantly challenged you. Does that make sense? Supportive environment, but he didn't give you nothing. He made you earn it. He put you
Yeah.
into situations where you were challenged. So, I'm in a situation right now that my son is not in the same situation I was when I was a kid. He's got everything. And do I feel bad for giving him everything? Hell no. I feel great. I'm glad I can give him everything. But I don't just give him everything. I challenge him, and we set up things where he has to earn them. You cannot just have everything. You have to earn it. So if you are not willing to earn it, I'm not going to give it. But if you earn it, I'm giving it to you. He's 5 years old. He just got his high yellow belt in Taekwondo. And everybody else in his class is 7. Right? So
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about that. And you know what? He was like, yes, 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 until he got in the car. And then he broke down and he was crying. He goes, I wanted my blue belt, Dad. His mom said, or his grandma said, well, you're going to have to work hard. And he said, I did work hard. And I said, that's right. But you got to get better. You're going to have to focus more. And he goes, I will, Dad. I want my blue belt. And I'm like, that's right. But he would have had to
That's awesome.
skip a belt to do that. So, yeah, I had misfortune, but so do other people. And I also used to ask myself, so how do these wealthy people have generational wealth? Well, it's really the leadership of the individual. And a lot of times it's the great generation or the people who were misfortunate who said, you know what, I'm going to make it happen. So I don't seek comfort. I'm not interested in being comfortable. I'm interested in being wealthy. So if you're a future founder, guess what? You know, it's not about being comfortable. My first $1 million, I'll tell you a story. This is a great story because
Yeah.
I grew up with brothers and none of them became millionaires or multimillionaires, and none of my family did I ever met. And I'd been away for like 4 or 5 years, right? I didn't want to come home until I had $1 million, right? And I was working all over the world in Southeast Asia, from India, Indonesia, Philippines, South Korea, Singapore. My whole goal was I wanted to make $1 million, right? And then I went home and there was a family reunion and it was all good, especially because, you know, I'm showing up in the Escalade and I've got a, you know, accurate NSX and all the toys, you know. But my brothers are like, you know, but we're not like you. We're not salespeople, right? And I'm like, if you only knew, I'm not, you're labeling me as a salesperson, but what I really do is serve people, help business owners, put them into business for themselves. All those 800 guys are independent contractors and they're full time, but I empower them. And I said, and they're like, well, what can we do to actually become a millionaire if we don't want to do sales? I said, well, first of all, you guys only work half days. And they're like, what are you talking about? We work our ass off. I'm like, really? You think you work your ass off? Yeah, we work 9 to 6 every day. I'm like, yeah, that's a half day, folks. That's a half day. You want to be a millionaire? You want to run your own business? You warm up at about hour number 12. That was been my journey. Unless you're a genius and you can do the 4-hour work week, but I've never, ever seen anyone pull it off except for Tim Ferriss.
No, I think that's important if we could pause there, right? Because I think people are going to hear this ultimate success formula and they're going to say, okay, great. I can apply it. I'll do it for a year and I'll get where I want to be. But I think you just made a really good point, and maybe you can kind of clarify. Do you think your story is indicative of what it takes, like you said, to make millions of dollars and start a successful business? Is it's going to be a grind of 12-hour days for years? I mean, is that fair of what it's going to take, or
Well,
what
no, it's
expectations
not
should
fair.
anyone listening to it?
That's what it took me. All right.
Okay.
So it's not fair to say that. So with the, there's a, when I grew up, there was no internet. When I grew up,
Mhm.
there was no Facebook. There was no social media. When I grew up, there was no cell phone. That, and now it's not even a phone. It's not even a cell phone, right? I mean, it's my calculator. It's my camera. It's my blood test kit. It's my navigation system. It's my
Mhm.
communication system. So we can now turn decades into days. You don't have to grind for
Mhm.
12 hours a day for many years, because with the new tools and the advantages and resources available to you that were never available to me in a previous generation, you have these. So that's why I talk about maximizing resources, right? And clarifying where you are, because you have advantages that have never been available to people in the entire history of the world. And now with AI, ChatGPT 3, 4, all of these AI tools, you don't have to grind, right? Especially if you love what you do, you enjoy the grind. You fucking embrace it. You run to it, not from it, right? And you do it. You do the work. It could be 4 hours a day. It could be 6 hours a day. Bottom line is you gotta move the needle. And so for me, success is every day, every day, every day. Not someday, not one day, not what you did yesterday. It's about today. What are you going to get done today? And are you going to look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, you know what? I slayed the day.
Consistency.
Absolutely.
I think you make a really good point that, I mean, we're doing it right now. You're in the Philippines, I'm in the US, and we're talking live, recording this halfway across the world. A lot of people, I was born before the iPhone existed, but a lot of people take technology for granted. But I mean, there's a lot of amazing resources available to us that we just seem to take for granted. But I don't know, maybe you could comment on it more. You grew up without them.
Yeah. It's a fact, man. I look at this and I'm like, this is crazy. This is insane, right? So I talked about the different senses, right? So you don't, like, one of the 5 laws of focus is more important than intelligence. There's a lot of smart people out there that are broke or just seeking comfort. Like I just had surgery. So I went and I had to get an MRI. You know what an MRI is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You know what MRI stands for?
Magnetic resonance imaging.
Yeah. How smart was that dude?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That's called uncommon sense. I talked about the common. There's a higher level, uncommon sense, right? But as long as you're willing to do the work, you can find a way, right? So you have the resources more than ever before in the history of the world to create a value proposition, whether it's courseware, whether it's a product, whether it's software as a service, whether it's building a community on social media to add value to others. There's so many. Did you know that you can build communities on Facebook and then sell the Facebook group?
I don't know if I knew that specifically. I've heard about Instagram pages, but I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, you can sell your Facebook group. There's people out there selling courses on how to sell a Facebook group that you can actually do for free, right? You can go on ChatGPT for free and write a book, or just put in some prompts and let it write it for you. Then sell the book.
So
I'm not saying
really quick, I want to jump.
Go ahead.
I just want to jump in, right? I think this is you make a really good point. Is there are so many options, and I think any of them can work or could work. But how do you avoid that analysis paralysis, or that I don't know what to do, or trying 20 things at once and none of them work, so just giving up? How do you pick the one thing that's going to make you successful?
So I call it the number one thing, right? So for me, whatever I'm going to do to evaluate it, I always think through a process. What's the number one thing I can do, right, that will make the biggest difference in my life or business? What's the number one thing I can do, make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time, that's sustainable and scalable? Do that. And
Makes sense.
What you focus on expands, right? What you focus on is what you get. So if you are focused on 5 different things or 10 different things, you're not focused. You're distracted. That's not focus. That's distraction, right? And I look at people scroll their phones all the time, man. I'm like, God. You go to dinner nowadays and you look at everybody and their families, and everybody's got a gadget. And I'm like, and you know, they're like, well, we actually have dinner with our family together every night. Nobody says a word. They're all together. I don't get it. I don't get it. And it's
So
okay. I'm not judging it. I just don't get it.
yeah, I mean, maybe you could speak to that too, because I always think about this. I mean, we're talking about the benefits of all these technologies and how you can use them to grow or scale a business. But then I think you're talking about the flip side of them, where people are perpetually distracted watching whatever it
More
is on
connected,
TikTok. Yeah,
more connected than ever before, and more disconnected than ever before.
yeah,
Isn't that amazing? More connected than ever before, yet more disconnected than ever before. People can be chatting with their friends. Meanwhile, they're sitting with their friends at dinner. And
Mhm.
they're not chatting with each other. They're chatting with others. So they're actually disconnected at the same time they're connected. How funny is that?
Yeah. Oxymoron. The irony. One other thing I want to touch on, because you mentioned it earlier, is that you do not seek comfort. I think people that are watching this or just starting out on their journey would look at somebody like you and say, "Hey, you've made it. You've made all this money." I would assume you just kick back and relax and drive your sports cars or whatever it is. So, I mean, can you bust that myth a bit, or
Yeah,
maybe
so
is
I
it
just
just
put
kind of
out the
this?
sales machine. Absolutely. So uh, I want to make a bigger difference in the world. I want to build an enterprise level business that allows companies to go from ordinary to extraordinary. So the first 30 years of my life, right? I've ran a business. It's not the first 30 years of my life. My first 30 years of my life in business, because I'm 54 now. But I spent the first 30 years recruiting, training, and retaining salespeople and teaching them how to run their own businesses, to go from ordinary to extraordinary because of the opportunity that I gave them. And I'm just paying it forward from what my mentor gave me. Full disclosure.
Mhm.
But I have failed so many times in my life, and I I don't like it, and I don't believe there's really any failure unless you quit. There's only feedback. So as long as you don't quit and you learn from your mistakes, then mistakes are a really good thing. So as an example, 7 years ago, we had more than 4,000 salespeople in our organization, but we were failing as an organization. Um, we were losing, we lost 30% of our sales force in 1 year. From like 4,000, we lost almost 1,000 guys. Our products were outdated. Our training systems were outdated. We had no automation, no technology. And I felt responsible because a lot of these people, learned the business from me. But I had gotten comfortable. The more money you make, we seek comfort, right? That's the irony, right? That's another oxymoron. We work really, really hard so we can get really, really comfortable. Yes or no? A more
Yes.
comfortable house, a more comfortable car, um, riding in first class instead of business class, or business class instead of economy class. We all seek comfort, right? But I don't seek it. I enjoy it. I want it, but I'm not seeking it. So 7 years ago, my organization was failing. Even we were still making money, I was losing people and I felt like a failure. So I went back into the laboratory. I started sourcing new products. We even created our own products. If you look up Aqua Plus, we own the brand. La Vie Cosmetics, we own the brand. Fun Crowds, loyalty advertising app, we own the brand. And finally, the sales machine. But the sales machine is taking that psychology. I went back, we started building new products. I started recruiting, training, and retaining differently. I created courseware, levels of development for my people to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And I took that psychology of how to sell, right? And how to lead and how to empower people so they know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. People don't do things because they're in fear. They're afraid of making a mistake. They're afraid of being scolded. They're afraid of being laughed at. And a confused mind or a fearful mind doesn't act. That's why there's such high turnover in sales. So I took that psychology and I put it into a methodology with levels of development, with rewards, recognition, competition, compensation, with the pillars of retention, where you have a great environment, that you have great relationships, that people constantly have growth, and they're doing something purposeful. And I built that into technology. That's what's called the sales machine, with the patent pending smart framework. And it cost me over $1 million of my own money, bootstrapped, because I wanted to get better. I wanted to make a bigger difference. So the first 30 years helping individuals. The next 30 years, I'm going to help companies build a sales machine in their business by utilizing the sales machine technology.
Okay, that makes sense. You're selling to enterprises. You went to essentially building up salespeople and giving them the products to sell. And then you took all that experience and encompassed it into this platform, which can be utilized by enterprises.
Correct.
Yeah,
And it's
I
got a
like it.
smart framework. So it's sales, marketing, accountability, retention, and training in one platform that works seamlessly for performance management. So it's not a CRM. Is there a CRM in there? Yeah, but if you've got a notebook on your desk, then you've got a CRM. They don't do anything. The sales machine, performance management, baby.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. I like how, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like your whole story, all of your experience, you talked about the failures, the ups and downs, is kind of encompassed in what you've put together, right? And so that's essentially what people are getting when they sign up for the sales machine is you and your mastery of sales all in one platform.
Yes, they're getting empowered with the psychology and a methodology that's built into technology. I mean, the companies can save tens of thousands of dollars with the training system, onboarding people, giving them levels of development to grow, updating leaderboards. And then the people get notified like it's a smart framework and it works smart.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's awesome. What are your goals for the sales machine as you work to grow it? You know, if you're looking out 5 years from now, where do you want to be?
Yeah. So the goal is between 1,000. The goal is 1,000 companies using the sales machine within the next 3 to 5 years. So now I am truly, empowering businesses to build their own sales machine. So I can take companies now that can go from ordinary to extraordinary with automation.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's if it goes back to helping people, right? It's much more of a leveraged play. If you help a large enterprise scale and you help their entire sales team scale, you really are helping more people, right? And then they're in turn serving others through their sales. Is that how you look at it?
100% playing a bigger game. The more successful I can help other companies become, the more successful their individuals can become. And it's making a bigger difference, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great. I want to call back though to the ultimate success playbook. And maybe that's going back to the individual, wherever they are in their journey, whether they want to become good at sales or found a business. That's where they should start, right?
Absolutely. I would have given you $100,000 for this formula 20 years ago. I swear. I swear to God, I would have. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my own self and personal and professional development, probably close to half a million bucks. So anyway, you can't buy it. I use it to work with my uh, group of CEOs, and I give it to the people in my organization. But I'll make it available to all of your listeners and for free. They
Awesome.
can go and put in their email and download it. My team has it all set up to give it away.
No, I appreciate that. I know you mentioned that when I had reached out to you on LinkedIn. So I think that's amazing. And can you kind of clarify too exactly what it is and how people can make the most of it, right? I know we basically talked about this for an hour, right? I think for people maybe it'll seem like a big task, but how do they tackle it, right? They want to go download it, they get it for free. Is it pretty easy step by step?
Oh yeah, so I use, I train with Blair Singer. Blair Singer trains all of Success Resources and all of their seminars, workshops. He trains all of Robert Kiyosaki's salespeople, every single one of them. He's a legend, and I trained with him. I learned from him, and then I also trained with him, helped him do training. So we use accelerated learning, training, and experiential techniques. So if you actually open up the Ultimate Success Formula, as soon as you go to it, I walk you through step by step, little by little, how to put the pieces of the puzzle together based on where you're at, right? That's why clarity is so important. Everybody's at a different stage in their life. Everybody's at a different level in their life. And that's why we simplify it. First, you do the 5 steps to clarity, and it's an enjoyable exercise. It can be painful too once you realize, right, that there's some things you need to start doing, some things you need to stop doing, and then there's some things you need to streamline. And I walk you
Yeah.
through it every step of the way. It's a 28-page document. And it's everything that I've learned about psychology, methodology, and it's not built into technology, but I've been told it's priceless. And I've also been told that McKinsey, a big agency, right,
Hmm.
that work on systems and platforms and stuff like that. I sit on the board with a lady named Sissy Ma, and it's called the Boardroom. And she goes, when I introduced her to this framework, and she's did $17 billion in mergers and acquisitions. Try to wrap your head around that. 17 billion. She was just at a Wealth Mentors conference with Oprah last week, right? And I gave her the ultimate success formula, not knowing what she would think about it. And she said, "You know what, John? McKinsey did a study to create something like this for all of their executives. They spent $400,000 and it took them a year to come up with their framework. And I'm blown away because yours is better." And
I love it.
then I was blown away. But simple things can
Yeah.
make a big difference.
Well, hey, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to break it down with me for an hour. I'll say at least at the minimum, and I have it as well. So I'll go through it in more depth, but I've already learned a lot. And so I'll let you close. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Obviously, you've mentioned that that will be available for download for free. Link will be in the description, right? Just got to provide your email address. You get the whole document for free. That is not currently for sale. But anything else you'd like to
Yep.
close with?
I got nothing. Nope. I got nothing else. Happy to be of service. You guys enjoy it. God bless you and all the best.
All right, John. Thanks again. And also, all your contact info, I'll put that in the description as well so people can find you, the sales machine, check you out on LinkedIn. But hey, again, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, Connor, keep it going, man. Keep it going.
Right on.